promoting coffee, amongst other things. Thank you.
Thank you for the nice introduction and for the invitation to speak. Yes, I'm going to be talking about coffee. Coffee in Colombia is somewhat cosmopolitan branding as well, because Colombia is known for many things, but one of the things that we would like to be known more is for coffee and the many things that positive things are going on in Colombia. So just to have a way of introduction, who are we? I work for the Colombian Coffee Growers Federation. The two persons that you see on the left are the previous and the current Juan Valdez. Juan Valdez is the symbol, the spokesperson of Colombian coffee growers. And who are the Colombian coffee growers? They are organized under something that is called the Colombian Coffee Growers Federation. We have been around for over 80 years. There are over 500,000 coffee growers in Colombia. And we currently could be conceived as well as an NGO. We invest over $1 billion a day in sustainability programs, things that help the coffee growers, Colombian coffee growers, standard of living. I told you that there are over 500,000 coffee growers. They run very small plantations. Almost 300,000 of them have less than 1 hectare in coffee. And almost 95% of them have less than 5. So the trick really is to get them to agree on common goals, to agree on something so that they can do something that they wouldn't be able to do individually. And that's how, the biggest secret that we have is really a way of forming those consensus among coffee growers. And that's what we have in National Coffee Growers Congress, in National Committee, a directory committee, and regional coffee growers committees all around the country. So those consensus are brought from the ground up. That's why we can invest in advertising, develop programs, develop a number of initiatives that allow us to compete in the world marketplace. Okay, so that's as far as introduction. Why do we need to differentiate? Because coffee is perceived perceived to be a commodity. Well, looking at this graph, we'll sort of try to explain. In Colombia, we have a very different way of growing coffee than other countries, for instance, Brazil. You'll see how coffee, for instance, is harvested in northern Brazil. It's machine-driven, lower cost of production. I'm not comparing with Vietnam, which is another coffee-producing country that has even lower cost of production than Brazil. Whereas we have to deal with high mountain slopes. We are in the Andes. We have to deal with different flowering and maturing cycles, which force us to pick only the mature cherries. And that's costly, because that involves time and work. And it's not only in the harvesting, but that coffee needs to go through a number of selection and post-harvesting practices. So we have to deal with higher costs, but also on the other hand, we produce better quality. So we needed to communicate that. And that's why we started not only being proud of what we do, and this is a sample of coffee growers with Juan Valdez, but also needed to communicate that to consumers. We did that starting in 1960. In 1960, we started our first Colombian coffee campaign. Only 4% of consumers, the American consumers back then, recognized that Colombia produced coffee. They thought that coffee was really coming from somewhere else. And basically, the people to whom we sold our green coffee beans to, the roasters, were marketing consumers blends, breakfast blends, French roast blends, whatever blend, but they wouldn't tell the origin of the coffee to consumers. And we had to make the case that origin was relevant to the consumer choice. And so we started off in a number of markets, primarily in the US, and we achieved decent awareness figures. You were talking about Enrique was talking about the awareness of the Spain of the brand. Colombian coffee, in terms of awareness, has achieved throughout the years decent percentages. This is a sample of countries. US, Canada, and Spain are way up. Probably Asia is lower, but these are very healthy numbers in general. How we did this, we created a character of Juan Valdez. We made sure that the consumer would demand Colombian coffee. We created a logo, a triangular-shaped logo, which is the Café de Colombia logo. We developed a green brand strategy in the 1980s, and we also, pushed for the creation of a segment that we would call the 100% Colombian coffee segment. We'll see some numbers later on. I have a couple of spots that will sort of show you how this process came along in terms of some ads. So if we could run a couple of ads, please, I'll appreciate it.
You get when you buy 100% Colombian coffee can be quite surprising. Look for the symbol of Juan Valdez, the richest coffee in the world.
So, as I was telling you, we had a successful campaign all the way through the 80s to the 90s, but at some point the coffee category started to evolve, and we had to evolve with the category. So we started from one brand, and the coffee consumption occasions started to evolve as well. You will see that evolution as a steep evolution. You call it as in in the Mediterranean countries here in Europe, but you can see it in Canada and the United States, in the UK, etc. So we had to develop new brands for these evolving consumer occasions. And coffee is different than cars. You purchase your car every 3 or 4 years, and you feel like you're a car consumer, that you may be an Audi consumer. So you go for that sort of a segment in the market. In coffee, you have different consumption occasions throughout the day. So you could have an early breakfast with coffee, and you need the energy of coffee at that point in time. You don't have the time for a social experience. You really need that energy. But at mid-morning or mid-afternoon or in the evening, you may have coffee with some emotional needs as well. So you need to be present in these different consumption occasions. And that's how sort of our mantra is. How can we be present with a 100% Colombian coffee brand, a relevant brand for that particular consumption occasion? These are the possible consumption occasions. This is sort of drawn out from the National Coffee Drinking Trends study in the US, the different consumption occasions according to different segments and different price points. So we had to develop also a brand architecture to show how we would be there. And probably the biggest noticeable evolution in this architecture is the launch of our Juan Valdez Cafe, Juan Valdez signature coffee shop, which has been there since 2002. We currently have over 150 stores in a number of countries. To be able to provide that Colombian coffee experience, in those particular occasions we would be relevant, thinking that this will help the positioning of 100% Colombian coffee in general. Since then, we have had, we opened our first New York store in 2004. In 2005, we also opened some stores in Washington. We are opening some stores in certain New York American airports. And as we go on, we have also developed some brand recognition in the press and you can say impressions that have favored the brand Colombian coffee in general. Advertising age, for instance, chose Juan Valdez as the most popular American icon in advertising in 2005, but also sort of helped us create and reposition Colombian coffee. And that, in terms of measurement, if we are doing it right or wrong, I'd like to show you this graph. This is how we thought we would be. I mean, we had 10% of the grocery market with 100% Colombian coffee brands in North America. Before we started, we are probably 11% instead of 14%, but we have gotten a higher share of the higher price segment. In other words, we keep the same total share, but we are getting a higher share of the coffee sold at over $5 price points in the U.S., which is basically good news, because if roasters are being able to sell Colombian coffee at higher prices, that means that they can afford to pay Colombian coffee growers higher prices. And this is what we have got in additional sales at higher prices since we started. And we have come to over $100 million in additional coffee sales accumulated since we started. Now, what's the future? How we want to continue portraying this strategy? We are starting to use a lot more technology to market the coffee. We are developing virtual trips to origin that you can download to the web and sort of go and have the coffee experience and know why that particular coffee is different. Go and see a grower, if you will. And we have also, with some tools, traceability tools, bean track, what we call bean track, the ability to demonstrate to consumer which coffee, what is that particular coffee coming from. Let's see how that works. In the case of the bean track, the packages do have a code, and that code, you can type it on the website, or you can type it in the store. We'll show you where the coffee comes from. We'll provide you that emotional experience, knowing what your consumer is coming from. And that has been is in test now in Colombia, but it's coming out to the different stores, all Colombian stores. So this sort of traceability system, which has some technology involved, allows consumers to develop higher loyalty and be able to talk well about our coffee. And taking things from the wine industry, as probably most of you know, if you are talking about Spain tourism, you go to Rioja and you sort of think when you come back that you are now an expert in Rioja wines and start talking to your friends and family how expert you are. We want that sort of experience to be replicated with coffee, and that's why we created those virtual tools that we are launching later on this year, so that people can go to Colombia through the internet. They are moving from their homes and learn with educational and entertaining videos, learn why this coffee is different, so that they can tell family and friends as well. So basically, in order to finish here, is our challenge is to continue making Colombian coffee already relevant in different purchase decisions, to consumers' purchase decisions, in different consumption occasions, and that's how we're doing.